Alrighty, y'all. I'm gonna set this up here. Okay, so ultimately today I'm gonna be getting into trust structure. Thank you guys for tuning in once more. I'm gonna grab my marker. I'm gonna get into this. Okay, so first and foremost, we have trust structure. Okay, so this is the way that I structure it. This is for me personally, and people who are in the advanced stages with me. Um, Clients, higher ticket clients, people who have probably invested $1,000 or more dollars to build something for themselves that starts to cultivate their lives and their financial freedom and their family's freedom, etc. So the first thing that we have to do with the trust structure is identify what structure we want and what trust structures are there. Okay. So trust structures specifically, there is an irrevocable private trust. There is a revocable trust, which ultimately can be private or public, depending on probably what you do. As well as there's spendthrift clauses. There's additional agreements. There could be multiple trustees. There could be multiple beneficiaries. And so each trust could be slightly different. Okay. And so what you want to do is you want to structure it and you want to learn enough to structure it and your family's freedom and financial freedom, as well as beyond, because it impacts so many other different things. Just like financially is the lowest vibration of it, but by expanding the lowest vibration, you're setting a new high. It's a higher or I'm sorry, it's a lower high. So you're gonna keep getting, or you're gonna it's a higher low. I'm sorry, you're gonna keep getting higher and higher. It's a higher low. That's what specifically what I was saying. Okay, and so you've already reached those other ones, and now you're at a change of structure. I always like to compare things to the market because it has everything to do with structure. So how are you structuring yourself within the market? Can you continuously move with the market and your structure, your trust? And so that's the main thing too, is like, what conglomerate have you built? And this takes time. This is why the people who talk to me, I'm like, you guys are in it for the long term. You guys are in it for the long term, and we're building this. All right. So the main thing of this is 508c1a is that I'm a minister. So you administer things to the world. I'm a private minister specifically. Okay. So I have a private ministry contract I've developed. Okay. And that is me able to be represented as a minister. And then with this, you can get a US dot number. So this is why this is important. And also it connects to not driving, but traveling in my private conveyance. But what most public people would say is driving. All right. So, but it's different. They're different. Okay. But that's what people would think in their heads, most likely. So the US dot number. And people are like, I know there's a lot of steps and stuff, but like you guys have to see, like, you don't have to do this. You don't have to necessarily do this. But it's for the people who want to do this, or it could be for the breadwinners. It could be for the leaders in the family, or knowing like that they're going to be a multimillionaire. They just know it, and so they kind of have a mindset. And so it's for specific types of people. All right. So the US dot number, and then that would be under as a ministry, as a private minister. And then you get private US dot plates. And then you would also have your trust, which I would do an irrevocable trust with spendthrift clause, which is what I have. And it's private and it's common law. It's a common law private contract. And then ultimately I take that to the clergy, the clerk and the clergy, or the clerk county. And so it's the unincorporated county, because that's what a county is. It's unincorporated, but it does business with the public. And so, or business with corporations. But ultimately it is unincorporated. You can look at counties are unincorporated, at least the ones that I've seen in specific places where it says unincorporated. And so that's ultimately what you're doing too, is that you will have unincorporated LLCs. You'll have other different types of things which will be connected to, so LLC, but it'll be unincorporated, uninc. And this is a real thing, guys. It's just people don't talk about it. They don't talk about it. So what is uninc or unincorporated? It means that you don't pay corporate taxes because you're unincorporated. It's completely private. It's a different type of conglomerate. It has a higher jurisdiction and structure. It has a higher jurisdiction internationally. It's international monetary funds, international monetary exchanges. It has everything to do with this. So that's what I'm saying. So unincorporated. All right. Additionally, too, you're operating like the Men in Black with the passport process, with, perfecting your credit. not having to use credit ever again. You see what I'm saying? Or having an abundance of credit and never needing to use it, So you would do it as a minister, US dot number, and that would be the place that you drive in. And then that would have, and then two, you would also put like a civil peace flag. It's not necessarily like an American national or anything like. It's a civil peace flag, which is a statement. And then two, like flags or statements. A Rastafarian flag, which would be for ministry, which would be like religion or spirituality. And then I'll have a republic flag. And that republic flag will be generally within the place that I'm going. So I have a California republic flag because I'm a Californian, a living man upon the land, up on the land. I'm in good standing. I'm a good standing, technically constitutional citizen, okay, or with constitutional rights, okay, protected rights. So the main thing about this is that a lot of us are in this kind of stage in your life where, and I'm glad I got to it within 5 to 6 minutes. So we're trying to get assets, and a lot of people are trying to get assets, like a relationship's an asset, because that person that you're with, they're similar to you and you're similar to them, and you are building and growing with each other. Okay. So that's a big one. A lot of people are thinking like, maybe like groups, like a certain group you want to be around. Okay. Your soul tribe. That could be an asset too, because they can put you on to people that you may have never thought of. That's an asset. Okay. That's a spiritual or emotional or energetic asset. Okay. Then there's, additionally, what else? Cars, yachts, boats, yacht. Okay. And then what else? Vacations, but you have to see that a lot of people can take vacations and have those written off if they do it right. So people don't even realize this is like, it could be all, or two, if it's already under a private structure, oh my gosh, like you're chilling. It's a completely different type of thing. So that's when we're talking about cars, yachts, homes. Okay. Real estate, land, businesses, all these things are assets. And so the, unincorporated LLC or unincorporated business, because it's technically a LLC is a corporation, but you do an unincorporated, okay, LLC is kind of like the example of this. And why are you going to do this? Because these unincorporated LLCs will also have assets, and those assets will be owned privately by the trust. And then the beneficiary will be this, or will be the transmitting utility operating this. Okay. And so you'll be able to have different types of structures. You can also have like maybe a family trust over here. Like you can always have a family trust, or like private funds or a private bank. You can always have an index universal life insurance policy, which is being your own bank, as well as a life insurance policy bond note. It's what a birth certificate bond note is that they are insuring your life, but they're benefiting. Are you hearing me yet? Okay. So that's what they're doing, is they have evidence that you're birthing, that your mom birthed you. They're like, oh, I want to profit off that. I can guarantee you that I can guarantee this. And so they do it this way, and it's monetary bonds. Okay. And so that's what it is. It's an indemnity life insurance bond, guaranteed for 100 million, but knows that if I can subject this being, and I could put this being down, and I can belittle them, and I can make them, and I demoralize them low key, and I don't teach them the truth, and I lie to them, and I poison them, and I do all these different types of things, then they won't ever really figure this stuff out. And then we'll make sure that they identify with poverty or whatever. And so like, that's exactly what it kind of is. I mean, you have to see that. All right. So the main thing about this is that an index universal life insurance policy is betting on you. You're betting on yourself that you're going to live and you're going to die, and that you're going to benefit while you live, and you're going to benefit others in your family line when you die. And so there is a beautiful contract to that. So that's a main thing, is the index universal life insurance policy. You can borrow from that cash value. So you treat it like a bank account. So if you were to teach that to your family, that you do that as a bank account, that's your bank account in your name, governed by you. You don't have no late fees. You don't have none of this BS. That's what I'm saying. Like, you don't have fees. You don't have any of these things, bro. They don't put that with fractional reserve banking. So you're your own entity, you're your own being. So you're literally your own being. Like you create your own wealth. And so there's a level to it. There's like a Mansa Musa level to the riches that are to come. Like, let's say like my great grandson could be like legit because of the wealth that I've done and the wealth that I teach, the estate planning that I teach, building, living in private, et cetera, that by doing that, there's so many different positive benefits by not having additional parties in your information, in your business, really in your business. That's what it is. Okay. And so an index universal life insurance policy is an indemnity life insurance bond, and that can equate in value. Specifically, it matures around 18. Okay. And then additionally, it matures continually. And if you invest in it and you continually do that, so if you were to open it for a youngin when you were younger, if you were to open it for like a young Padawan, like they're 5 or they were just born and you just did it for them and you put it in their name and you knew, then ultimately that would acquire so much wealth, et cetera. And then from there, that being when they're 18, they would already have a full bank account set up for them. Like, this is what I'm saying is like, it makes so much more sense that we were never taught this. But now that I know this, I'm like, I got to put the people that I love on, because I know that they're, and there's levels to this. There's going to be an increase in vibration on the planet, in the next few hundred years. And you have to think of things as every 137 years. Okay. So every 137 years. So because you know that there's a full cycle. So there's a complete full cycle of humans between that type of time. Okay. So the 137-year period is like, if you can have this is an entity moving through those. And so each 137 period, you are affecting your generational family line, and they're becoming wealthier. They're becoming healthier. They're becoming, they're abundant. There's, let's say that there's descendants of all nations. Let's say that there is, there's a being moving through every other living being. So that means that each one in the family would have their own index universal life insurance policy. The beneficiary could be the trust. Okay. That's literally what I'm saying. And then it would keep passing through, and this entity would get really big and be able to help people. Okay. And help the family specifically. By helping the family, you're operating in private. So you don't need plates. You have your passport. You're set. You have your declaration of trust through the county clergy. So you're developing yourself at that point. Yo, we're only 12 minutes in. Give me one sec. All right. So this is exactly what I'm referring to. So the process of this is that you have the US dot number. That's what you would drive with. You have the passport. That would be your identification. That would remain you in private. You would know the Constitution, know your Bill of Rights, know the Declaration of Independence, know, Article 1, subsection 10, okay, of the Constitution. And then that is all about treaties. That's all about, contracts, specifically bills of credit, things like this. Okay. And so you would also have a holding company, or like that would be the public version, is that you would have the LLC, the holding company in like Wyoming or Florida or California or whatever, anywhere. And so you can also just do it as unincorporated and do it as a trust. Okay. And so this is, I would say, an irrevocable spendthrift trust, All right. An irrevocable spendthrift trust. All right. US DA number. And then you would have a ministry within that. And so this trust that I'm building, that I'm cultivating, is called Lux Aurum Trust. Okay. So Lux Aurum Trust. And it's ultimately a conglomerate of different things. It's a conglomerate. All right. And so it's not public. It is private. So think of it as like In and Out. I don't know if they'll ever go, public, or if they'll always remain private, but I always refer to In and Out. In and Out is not tainted like the other places because they're private. And the main thing about this is that by you setting up the trust structure as an irrevocable private spendthrift common law trust, then with an index universal life insurance policy by Doug Andrews. Check out Doug Andrews. Fantastic. Okay. Setting up a family trust within that. This is just doing a couple of notarizations with the public courts. You're putting them on notice of what you're doing in private because you know private law. And then two, there's an additional type of thing that the more assets this trust has, how do you put assets in it? You know, like the 2 or 3 cars or the home that you have, that you're the transmitting utility governing within a certain period of time. There's a certain amount of capital that you can cultivate with that. And so that is everything that can go back into the trust, which you can borrow against the cash value, the Indexed Universal Life Insurance policy, any money that you make trading or in sales or in marketing, advertising, in a day job, self-employment, investing, business owning, anything like this. They're all going to be interconnected. You can put that as your bank account. You can have an LLC also have an Indexed Universal Life Insurance policy. So any money that the LLC makes, then ultimately you can invest that into it has its own Indexed Universal Life Insurance policy, not even just on this. This is just my own. Okay. But like you can always have this and then have like an Indexed Universal Life Insurance policy of that LLC. And so anytime that this thing makes it, $1,000, will go directly into it as a bank account, and that will continually grow. That's exactly what banks do. They take other people's money. So this would be, let's say this is a bank. They would take other people's money. Someone would invest it into a bank, and they would say, "Oh, I got a debit, and I'll credit their account this amount, et cetera, et cetera." And so that debit, that'll go right into the bank account, and then they're gonna put that into Indexed Universal Life Insurance policies, and that's gonna expand. So it's a gate kept type of thing, but once you get it, you get it. You can't unget it. Okay. And so that's kind of the mindset, is like, you're going to open multiple Indexed Universal Life Insurance policies. You're going to help people with trading. You're going to help people estate plan. Really. That's really what you're going to do. You're going to help people estate plan at the levels that you know how to help people, guide people to other people that you don't necessarily know. And you're a part of the transition of the up leveling of the planet. The family trust. All right. So the family trust is directly connected to, let's say, your wife. Okay. Your heirs, your sons, daughters. All right. So directly connected. All right. And then that they would also be, maybe they get funds from this unincorporated thing because that's for them. There's certain beneficiary things that you can connect within the trust and say, okay, my son gets this son gets this son gets this daughter gets this daughter gets this daughter gets this daughter gets this, my wife gets this, okay, et cetera, et cetera. And then you're going to be able to build this, and they'll be able to be, let's say, the transmitting utility with the most controlling interest out of their other family members that can govern these assets. And these assets will move. We can move and transition assets while people live. We can always do stuff like that. You can always do different types of things. And that's because you see the bigger picture. You see the bigger picture that most people don't see. And because you see the bigger picture, a lot of people fear what you see in your perspective, or they think it might be grim or dark or anything. It's not necessarily like that, actually. A lot of it is just like, a lot of it's cognitive dissonance, but a lot of it can also be like misunderstanding or not a comprehension of, let's say, like law or mathematics or spirituality. It's like there's usually a cognitive dissonance between that. And so a lot of those people have entrepreneurial spirits, and you might see them as like a free-spirited being. Like you might think of them as weird or crazy or something. But a lot of times they really just seek freedom, and they know that freedom's really on another side of a dollar amount that they never chose to consent to, but they were forced into a reality to where it is a reality to them, because it differentiates, your food, it differentiates your health, it differentiates all these different types of things. And that's where people get into politics. And so the whole thing about this is that we learn how to be self-reliant, and we actually look like, and the only way you can do that is by not being around other people. It's like you have to learn how to be self-reliant. And there's different levels to self-reliance, because it's not that you don't have people around you. We are meant to be in smaller tribes, like smaller, low-key tribes. That's what we're supposed to be in. We're not supposed to be in big, huge groups. We're supposed to be in tribes. And this is how we do it. Okay. And so the main thing about this is that each of these, like, consider these a tribe, and they have assets. They go and do certain things. They go and sell certain things. They go and buy certain things. They go and trade and barter certain things. They go and acquire a couple of things. They go and grow a couple of things, create a couple of things, doing different types of things. And they're acquiring assets, okay? Homes, cars, yachts, businesses, trust policies, index universal life insurance policies, trading, any type of thing like this, anything that is an asset producing, it's an income producing asset. Anything that's an income producing asset is directly connected with the expansion of that asset, of that business, of whatever that's connected to. So that can always go back into paying off the cash value or paying off any loans. It's a cyclical type of thing. And so when you train this trust structure to be able to become a bigger conglomerate, you can actually start to shuttle and move your things into higher realities, like your way of living in higher realities. Because what do I mean? I mean, like when you have, like, it's just numbers. So if you have, like, let's say 10,000 means a lot to you, or let's say 100,000 means a lot to you, and you make $100,000 and then you have no debt and you have an income producing asset or multiple income producing assets, and that's also can be a potential income producing asset, et cetera, et cetera. Just by making the right money moves, you're going to continually build in your life that way you're going to be able to up level in your life. And it takes a little time, but also it's really not that hard, or that it's just that you got to do it and you have to be active and choose that this is my life. I'm choosing to do this, etc. And I'm going to benefit my wife, my heirs. And two, I believe it's in Proverbs, is like leaving an inheritance for your children's children, or your children's children's children, is a good man, is a great man, is somebody who is a man who stands in his greatness, a woman, an empress who stands in her greatness. And so there's levels to this, y'all. There's levels to being noble. So this is also talking about nobility. It has everything to do with trust. And so then I would be a noble. I would be a private noble. I would be a private king or a private queen, or it's ultimately a trust guarantee or a grantor with levels of credit, with high levels of credit. I would acquire all my bond notes. I would move them into my trust structure. I would move everything into my trust structure. There's these types of things. I'm not saying that this is the perfect way to do it. I'm saying this is the way that I do it, and I'm still learning. I'm still developing. I'm adapting and whatnot. And I think that that's the biggest thing, is that we are to be adaptive beings, all right? And that we adapt and we overcome, all right? So that's kind of the way that I set all this type of stuff up, all right? So like I said, like Ainsley and Coda. So, my son and my daughter, they're going to be heirs, my wife, okay? And we're going to be able to build this, and I'll give, these different parts. Okay, they get most controlling interest of this thing within this trust. They get most of this within this trust. We get most of this within this trust. See what I'm saying? And so then each of them would have certain assets, and then those assets would be kind of like gifts to them. They'd already have index universal life insurance policies at birth, okay? And then that life insurance policy would acquire value. So you just put $10 in, $20 in, $30 in, and it's going to expand because they're zero or they're one. They're a couple months old, and they're already making money by existing. And that is what they do on the front end in the public and all that other stuff. They are doing that. They're betting on you. They're literally saying like, well, like we can make value just by this being existing. It's all about that, and it's not something crazy. Like people think it's crazy. It's not crazy. It's not that crazy. Okay, what it is that we have to start to do this as self-reliant beings. Like we got to be more self-reliant. We have to be more in connection and unison and unity with all life around us, that we're not separate of the life around us. We are in unison with the life with us, that we are not separate of anything external of us, because it's just the illusion that it's external. Okay, everything is us, and we are everything, and we are interconnected with everything. That's why it is a reverence for God. That is what is a respect for God. That is why we are made in his image. That's why he's not separative of us. Okay, so it has everything directly to do with this, and the law is directly connected to that. By us living in the law, we are in the commandments, and then therefore we are starting to live in unity with all life around us. Okay, so it's about living in life around us. We're the only creature and being, we're the only creature who we're the only creature who affects the world around us. And so we can affect it also positively too, though. So that's what I'm saying, is like, because the implied aspect of it is like, because you can affect it negatively, that also implies that you can affect it positively, which is critical thinking skills and contemplation, the development to be able to critically think and create solutions to random, premature problems that people create because of their cognitive dissonance and the illusions they believe. So you can absolutely use the law of assumption and delusion and stuff like this to program yourself subconsciously to think better, think and have and do better. You can absolutely do it. And so that is where we become spiritually discerning with what we're doing, who we're around, what are we building, what are we investing in that could be investing in us. Are we investing in other people for us to live, or are we investing in us for us to live? And it's not a selfish thing, it's a self-reliance thing. And then that being can show up and be a complete asset to everybody because they're not a liability to no one. You guys hear me yet? They can be an asset to everybody because they're a liability to nobody. They're a liability to no one. So it's about it's about limiting that liability off you, but also having unlimited asset protection or recovery or accumulation or acquisition, which would be through a trust, which is a living entity. A corporation, LLC, is a dead entity. It's corporation. Corpse is ration. Okay. And so what we have to see is that we are starting to cultivate a living entity, and that entity can move through people. So the tenants' joint survivorship, the trust structures, the private trust structures, the public trust structures, stuff like this can move through entities. And that's a living being because it's acquiring a certain amount of value. And then if a transmitting utility or somebody who becomes and knows how to utilize a trust, they are able to utilize that note. Okay. And so they can, acquire cash value, build a family, estate plan, cultivate your family, and realize that you are valuable now. You're already worthy right now. It's just about having it in a contract and also recognizing it. And that's what it is. It's I am affirmations, it's prayers, it's the law, it's written, it is written. So like when you write, I am great, I am loved, I am appreciated, I am seen, I am heard. Man, I feel better already. Like you just start to, that really goes a long way. And music specifically, okay? Music is magic. Absolutely it is, because you can use it majestically. You can use it, musically. Like there's mathematics within the music, 369 vibrational frequencies, numerology, etymology, a terminology of Hebrew has a alphanumerical value. Alpha meaning alpha, alpha and omega. But you have to see like alphanumeric meaning, each letter has a numerical value. And then that's a certain amount of value that is in the word etymologically. Like we can study this stuff numerically, mathematically, in philosophy, etc. Peace and love. See you guys in the next one.
Hey.